Alright, and here is my spoiler review for the new movie X-Men Apocalypse, which just came out in theaters over here in Manila today, May 18th, 2016. And when I did my Captain America Civil War spoiler review, I got a lot of complaints saying, you didn't really give us much spoilers. Everything, we already knew what you said. We got it from the trailers and the snippets and clearly whatever, man. Okay, I thought that was a spoiler movie. I didn't want to spoil everything, but okay. You guys want spoilers? I'm going to give you spoilers for this movie, okay? So, get your popcorn, get your chips, get your beer, get whatever, your drinks, your milk, cookies, whatever. Get everything, all your snacks, your food, because this is going to be a long, long review. As most of you know, my reviews are very long. Well, not that long anymore. And you know what? I am just going to say the whole movie. I'm going to talk about how the events of the movie played out and hopefully chronologically as it played out from start to beginning. I'm going to lay it out all to you. And in between those events, I'm going to give my thoughts, in a little, James Joyce stream of consciousness-ish type of method of injecting whatever comes to my mind when I narrate the events of the movie. Okay, let's get right to it. So the movie starts with Egypt. Oh my goodness, 3,500 BCE. And from that point on, you know that the movie is in an epic scale. It is just going to be fantastic. And I mean that in the most literal sense, that it is a massive movie. It's like a global, massive, epic scale of destruction, and you know what's going to happen. It's like world-ending events from the get-go. So you get to see Apocalypse. He's being paraded, covered, everything like that, going into his pyramid. And apparently his acolytes or his horsemen are escorting him to transfer his consciousness, his mind, to a newer body. And then, at the get-go, you get to see already, because you've seen the trailers, you've heard Moira McTaggart's speech about Apocalypse, like the first mutant born, that he's lived through millennia and he is revered as a god. And the way he becomes immortal in the comic books, I've always felt that he was immortal because that's just one of his mutant powers. He just couldn't die, although he did die. And then he was reborn, whatever. Anyway, in this movie, he is immortalized by transferring consciousness from body to body. And in this regard, he is being transferred to a body, a fresh body, a host of a mutant that had a healing factor. And that way, once he transferred that, he would get those powers and he would live forever, just like Wolverine. And you get the sense that he got his powers. He got strong by, I think, his ability to transfer from one body to another allows him to collect mutant abilities and powers and memories and whatnot. And just like a Sylar in that series called Heroes, like Sylar on steroids, like mega steroids, like super enhanced Sylar powers. Like he could get any power by transferring from body to body. And that's what happens. Now he gets betrayed. They try to crumble the pyramid upon him and his horsemen try to protect him. The transfer is complete and he goes to sleep. Going back to the present, which is the 80s. The 10 years after the events of DC, where the whole world saw mutant kind save humanity, or save the president at least. Going back there, everyone's tried to move on. Xavier has his school, he's trying to make it just a school, quit the X-Men. Mystique is in the shadows trying to save mutants. She's trying to recruit. She's sort of in between Xavier's dream and Magneto's vision that, should humans coexist with mutants, or should mutants rule the world? But she's doing her part in the shadows, just trying to help mutants here and there. There's a scene in Berlin. There's a fight. The people are making mutants fight to the death. So you have Angel fighting Nightcrawler. He does end up saving Nightcrawler. And Angel gets injured. In another part of the world, in Poland, Magneto is sort of retired. He's trying out Xavier's dream of living with the humans, but he is keeping mum about his powers. He is trying to keep himself as a seeker, just trying to live an ordinary life. He takes on a wife, and she's got a beautiful daughter. And from that, you get to see the foreshadowing that he is going to lose everything. He's going to lose it. He's going to side with Apocalypse because that's going to hate humankind once again. Anyway, so that's the premise. That's how it starts out. And then you get to see Moira McTaggart in Egypt. Moira McTaggart being back. Wow, great stuff. Um, because it ties up the first movie with this one, and you get to see how it all gets connected. Her memory's still wiped out. So she's part of the CIA, and she explores the excavation. She uncovers a dig, and it's the Aqaba. They've sort of dug up or tried. They're praying to a dig, an archaeological dig of where the collapse apocalypse pyramid was. They're trying to resurrect En Sabanur or something like Apocalypse, and Moira McTaggart unwittingly activates the pyramid because she lets the sunlight in, and it activates the pyramid and resurrects Apocalypse from his sleep, and it causes a shudder. The world shudders because he sort of teleports out of his tomb, and it causes a great quake. On the other side, in Poland, Magneto is forced to reveal his powers. There was an accident, and he saves a guy by pushing over a huge metal cauldron. He's a factory worker, and that does not go unnoticed. The police come in, try to arrest him, and in the process he turns himself in. But his daughter apparently has powers over birds. I don't know if there was a mutant that could control animals. I can't remember who in the X-Men lore of the mutant could control animals. Anyway, his daughter tries to save his father by letting the birds attack, and the police, they don't come armed with guns. They come armed with bows and arrows, and one stupid idiot cop accidentally releases his arrow and kills the wife and child of Magneto. Magneto in his rage kills everybody, and he goes on the run again. And you know, news about Magneto resurfacing gets around. It gets to Raven, to Mystique, and Mystique decides to try and find Magneto by going back to Charles, and that's how they all meet again, full circle. Now Apocalypse, after resurrecting, starts his quest. He's trying to learn the world. The first one he meets is Aurora Monroe, Storm, and it's great that the story of Storm begins in the streets of Cairo, which is so comic book. And she's a thief, and she gets cornered by the people she stole money from. She stole some bits from, and Apocalypse saves her, and she figures out he's a mutant, and Apocalypse imbues her with power, tries to show her what she can do, and she pledges loyalty to Apocalypse. And that's how Apocalypse starts learning about the world, about how the humans have amassed weapons, systems, laws, and he's like, what? I've been only gone for centuries and the humans have taken over the world? What? So he's so angry, he wants to take over again. He's trying to he's saying that humans have been worshipping false gods of technology, and he's gonna be back. He's gonna be the real god. And so he starts collecting humans. So the next person they go to the den of Caliban, which is great. It's like a sort of a reference to the Morlocks, and you know, Caliban was one of the horsemen of the and I thought, you know, there was going to be a reference there, but it was nice. Psylocke was the bodyguard of Caliban. That was strange, and Apocalypse wanted the strongest, so he enlists Psylocke. So Psylocke says, okay, show me. Then he imbues Psylocke with power, and you know, Psylocke's great. I love how they portrayed it. They did take some liberties again with Psylocke. Her psychic knife is now a psychic blade, sword, joust, whatever thing that can cut through metal and anything. You know, in the comic books, she was able to do that with the sword. She energized the sword and she could cut through things, but her psychic blade was really a psychic weapon. It was a mind weapon. It wasn't really a physical weapon, but they took some liberties. And now her psychic blade can turn into anything, like a whip and all that. So again, stream of consciousness. I already warned you I was going to do that. Oh, Apocalypse, by the way. Apparently he's amassed a lot of powers, including that healing factor, because he successfully transferred himself to that body of the mutant with the healing factor. Apparently, you know, in the comic books, I knew he had some telepathy, telekinesis a little bit. He had shape-shifting abilities. He had a little bit of immortality and durability and maybe healing factor. I don't know. He could shapeshift. That was it. He was like a notch lower than Thanos for me. I didn't think he was that strong. He was strong. He lived forever. But in this movie, he was like, I thought he was like super strong because he has like Sylar-like abilities of collecting. mutant abilities, that made him super strong. And one of his main abilities was he could reshape matter on the molecular level. He could literally he could phase you into the ground or into the wall. That's what he did with some of the people in Cairo that were cornering Storm. He can build buildings, he can build pyramids, he can reshape sand, stone, whatever. It's like that matter was like clay to him, that he could literally shape matter into anything he wished. And I thought that was super strong. Other than that, he had I think he had a very good mutant mind. And then he could sort of unleash the potential of any mutant. He could raise the power of a mutant to the maximum level. I think that was new. I thought he needed machines to do that, but apparently he could do that now with his abilities. So I thought he was a little bit too strong in this movie. But then again, it's a cinematic universe, and they needed a villain that was that strong. So it wasn't totally unacceptable. It was a little bit strange for somebody who read that in the comic books, but that was his abilities. His costume, come on guys, give it a break. It had to be cinematic universe type of costume. It couldn't be as cheesy as the comic book. So you know what? I didn't hate it. It wasn't the greatest Apocalypse costume, but I did not hate it, not like most fans. So they get Psylocke, they collect Psylocke, Psylocke joins him, and Psylocke says, I know where to get the mutants. And then they get Angel. Angel, he converts Angel into the Archangel, but he's still the Angel with metal wings. And then finally, they go to Magneto. Magneto, he's all in pain. He's about to kill a bunch of factory workers. And Magneto says, don't stop me, whoever you are. And Apocalypse says, I'll do it for you. I'll kill everybody. Come join me. I'll give you power. And it says, oh, great, power. So they regroup. They're all strengthening Apocalypse is trying to strengthen each other. While Raven goes back to the Savior School of Gifted Youngster. And he says, Charles, we got to find Magneto. I think he's in some sort of trouble. And it's nice, Hank is glad to have Raven there, and before that, sorry, I made a mistake. Going back to Moira McTaggart, just before the events of Magneto, Charles decides to see Moira, and he learns about Apocalypse, and that's what you see in the trailer. So he learns about Apocalypse, and he's just all giddy. He's like a teenager. He's like a lovesick puppy. I like that. He was a little bit humorous, a little bit forced. I think that humor that Charles was all giddy about seeing Moira McTaggart again, but it was nice. Yeah, that love interest was brought back there, and he was so happy to see Moira. And then they learn about this Apocalypse. They go back with Moira to the X-Mansion. And then they meet Raven. Raven says, oh, Magneto's in trouble. And says, okay, let's find Magneto. So Xavier tries to find Magneto using Cerebro. So as Charles, that's great, using Cerebro to find everybody. They reveal it to Moira that, you could find anybody. And they find Magneto. And Magneto starts talking to Charles. And Magneto, as he's talking to Charles, Apocalypse begins to notice. And somehow, Apocalypse gets a connection, easily connects with Meg, because he's connected to Magneto now. He connects to Charles, and he gets connected to Cerebro, and that's when all hell breaks loose. He controls Charles by controlling all the humans, and he controls every single military power in the world, and he controls the humans responsible for all the nukes, and he launches Apocalypse through Charles, controlling the humans, launches all the nukes, and immediately the world feels Apocalypse's presence. And I thought this was going to be the end scene. I thought this was going to be the end, like Apocalypse doing all that, regrouping. But right from the get-go, right from just the movie just started, and Armageddon happens, Apocalypse happens, and all the nukes get destroyed. And to break hold of Apocalypse's control, they destroy Cerebro. And Apocalypse knows about Xavier now, and he wants Xavier for the main reason that he wants to use Xavier's body, because that way he can control everybody. So he comes to the X-Mansion, and everyone's shocked. Eric, what? They get Xavier. Havoc was there, which is great. I'll tell you the backstory on Havoc later on. But Havoc tries to stop them by blasting, but too late. Apocalypse already teleported, and Havoc, Alex Summers, blasts like a reactor or a generator in the Savior School for Gifted Youngster, and the whole school begins to explode. Now, cut. Backtrack the story of Alex Summers and Scott Summers. Just after the events of Cairo, the movie opens up with Scott Summers. Sorry. Scott Summers, James Joyce, Stream of Consciousness. Scott Summers develops his power. And Havoc sort of, I think in this universe, Havoc is the big brother. Alex is the big brother, and his younger brother is Scott. And they sort of, they come to terms with Scott's power, and they take him to the Savior School for Gift of the Unseen. And that's where he meets Jean. And immediately Xavier accepts Cyclops as one of his students, and Beast gives him his ruby quartz glasses and whatnot, and so Cyclops is part of the school. And before Apocalypse visits the school, they sort of take a joyride. Jean, Scott, immediately the romance is budding between them, and he takes Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler was saved by Mystique. When Mystique is brought, he brings them to the school, so they all take a joyride. So when the school explodes, Scott is not there, Jean is not there, and Nightcrawler is not there. And it's great. They go out, they have a time of their life. Nightcrawler is dressed up like Michael Jackson's Thriller, like zombie. And the whole, throughout this whole film, the music was fantastic. A lot of 80s music. The fashion, it was a great 80s reference. So anyway, the mansion explodes, and here comes Quicksilver. Quicksilver has been watching the news, and he wants to see his father, Magneto. So Magneto resurfaces, and he goes to the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters to get answers. But as he comes there, his entrance was just classic. In Days of Future Past, one of my favorite scenes was Quicksilver. And then he comes in now, and again, he is in a brilliant scene. He tries to saves everybody in the Savior School for Gifted Youngsters. As it explodes, he takes everybody, saves everybody, except Havoc. And the way he does that, it was done beautifully. Some great Eurythmics music, or at least Annie Lennox, Sweet Dreams. It was nice. I loved it so much. One of my favorite scenes in the video, in the movie, that he saves everybody using Annie Lennox in the background, except Havoc. That's what I don't understand. Apparently Havoc dies in the explosion, which was weird. I don't think they had to kill Havoc. But anyway, the Apocalypse and his horsemen, they escape with Xavier, and the whole school explodes, and everybody's recovering from it, and apparently Havoc dies. So as that explosion happens, in comes a helicopter full of military guys, and it's Stryker. So Stryker neutralizes all of them, but Jean, Cyclops, and Nightcrawler manage to evade the troops, and Stryker with his troops gets they kidnap Mystique, Beast, Moira, and Pietro, Quicksilver. They take them to the Weapon X facility. Now, Cyclops and Jean Grey and Nightcrawler, they snuck on board the helicopter, and they're taken to the facility as well, but they're not captured because Jean uses her telepathy, her mind skills, to block them from being seen. So for a while I thought, where is this story going? Why are you detracting from the Apocalypse story? And what happens in this scene is truly remarkable, I think. And I thought for a lot of the fans, this was a necessary scene. That whole Weapon X facility thing, it was a necessary scene to tie up the Wolverine movies. And you know what? It was a nod. It was Bryan Singer and Kinberg just trying to please fans about the Wolverine. And this is what happens in that scene. Yes, it's a Wolverine scene. So they try to break out. As this thing is happening, in the other part of the world, in Cairo, Apocalypse sends a message through Charles. He amplifies Charles' powers, even without Cerebro. He sends a message to the world that the world is coming to an end, that he is here, Apocalypse coming to stay, and he's going to change the world. And then he instructs Magneto to shake the world, control the magnetic fields, and cause massive earthquakes, throw everything metal, and destroy the world, put the world in a clean slate. And as that's happening, Stryker is trying to interrogate the four guys she's captured: Moira, Beast, Quicksilver, and Raven. and Mystique. And the three other mutants, Cyclops, Jean, and Nightcrawler, they try to bust them out. And the way they do it is they stumble upon a cage. And you all know what that is. That is Weapon X. They unleash Weapon X. And it is Hugh Jackman. Oh my god, Hugh Jackman in the Weapon X outfit, like pants, like ripped up pants. And he has that headgear, those wires connected to him. Classic Weapon X gear. And he just wreaks havoc on everybody. He kills all the soldiers, and just as he was about, and just as he was about to escape, Jean and Cyclops and Nightcrawler, they sort of make contact with him. And while all this chaos was ensuing, Stryker just manages to escape. So what this confirms is the events of X-Men, at least X-Men Origins Wolverine, at least they do happen. Mystique doesn't eventually save Wolverine, but the events of the adamantium turning into Weapon X do still happen. And as he's trying to escape, Jean sort of tries to heal Logan. He tries to give Logan whatever memories he still has, the little memories, giving him his name Logan and whatnot. And Logan escapes the facility with fragmented memories, but not as a mindless beast, but he escapes human. So that sets up that whole continuity of the X-Men, of Wolverine and whatnot. So it's just great. To some critics, it might not be a necessary scene, but for fans of the X-Men cinematic universe, of the comic books, that was a very necessary scene. It was great service to the fans. I loved it. Thank you, Bryan Singer and Kinberg. So they break out Mystique and everybody, and from this point on, I was already expecting that whole scene that Mystique is going to take over, and she's going to train the mutants to fight Apocalypse. That doesn't happen. That happens actually in the end. That whole scene that you're no longer students, you're X-Men. That happens like the very last scene. That's like more of an epilogue. So it was kind of a bit of a surprise. It wasn't going to be as cheesy. They decide to go to Cairo. They take a jet. And the jet had flight suits. That's why they're all in their black suits, because of the flight suits. And they go to Cairo to save Charles. And that whole thing that happens in Cairo, that's all in the trailer. All the action that happens in the movie, you've already seen it in the trailers. And it's a little bit disappointing. That's all we got. That's all we got from Psylocke. That's all we got from Storm. That's all we got from Angel. That whole end climatic scene with the final battle with Apocalypse. That's it. That's all the action. So all the action you've already seen in the trailer. And yeah, medyo bitin nga na parang akala mo ang daming mangyayari, pero subalit ang nangyari lang gaganon ako. Ano lang yung nakita nyo sa trailer, yun lang yun. So whatever you saw, you were expecting a lot of things to happen in the action, but all the action was in the trailers, and that happened in Cairo. They all fight, they try to get to Apocalypse, they try to get Apocalypse to Charles before he gets transferred, and they succeed to get transferred, but they still can't stop Apocalypse. And Xavier tries to stop Apocalypse by getting in his mind, and he's still too weak because Apocalypse apparently has a strong mind. And again, that whole theme of betrayal, Apocalypse gets betrayed because Angel dies in the process, and he didn't seem to care, and that bugged Storm. And and the X-Men, starting with Quicksilver, with Mystique, they try to stop Apocalypse, and he just is about to kill them, and that bugs Magneto, and Magneto is the first to betray Apocalypse, and he puts everything in it as Apocalypse is going to go to Charles again, because Angel and Psylocke stop the escape of the X-Men, but Nightcrawler teleports them to safety. But Apocalypse knows where they are, and figures out where they are, and they tries to get to Charles. But Magneto tries to stop him, bombards him with all these things, and he's the first one to betray. And then Xavier tries to get into Apocalypse's mind, and he thinks he's strong enough to stop Apocalypse, but he's not. And he asks help from Jean, and that whole scene is like, Jean, come on! It's for the audience. It's like saying, Jean, why don't you just help Charles? Charles needs your help. And it takes forever for Jean to help Charles, and it's like the suspense is like, come on, Jean, unleash it. And she does, and finally Jean is the key factor to defeat Apocalypse. Cyclops, they're blasting in Beast, they're trying to get to Apocalypse, but Jean gets into the mind fight, and he saves Charles, and she just lets go. Xavier says, Jean, you gotta let go. And she unleashes the full power of the Phoenix Force. And in the beginning there was a lot of foreshadowing of Jean can't control her powers, but it wasn't explored as much. And now Professor Xavier just unleash it, and Jean was able to kill Apocalypse by wiping him out using the Phoenix Force with the help of Magneto, and then Storm joins the party, and Storm rebels against Apocalypse, and they all pitch together, and they defeat Apocalypse, and Apocalypse dies. He just gets vaporized by the Phoenix Force. And everybody goes back, and the whole world realizes how that an apocalypse was averted, pun intended. And news says that Magneto was instrumental in aiding the defeat of this unknown force. Everybody goes to being all good again, except Psylocke, for some reason, does not join the X-Men. She just realizes what's going on. Apocalypse defeated. She doesn't fight the X-Men. She just goes back into the shadows. And to me, that's well, characteristic of Psylocke. Psylocke's become a killer, a cold-blooded killer right now in the X-Men universe. And you know what? That has a lot of possibilities. Again, stream of consciousness. I think Psylocke can appear in the Deadpool films because she's not really connected with the X-Men now. She didn't join the X-Men. And you know, that would be great if she forms her own team of X-Force, or she joins Deadpool. Oh my god, Deadpool and Psylocke, a serious badass killer Psylocke, and then you got this badass killer, funny, annoying Wade Wilson. Oh, that would be so fantastic if they joined forces. Or she comes back in Deadpool universe with as X-Force and whatnot. And so everybody's all peachy and all that. And the end credits. Oh, if you're wondering how Xavier gets bald, as he was when Apocalypse was trying to get into his body, transferring, that's how he got bald. Apparently Apocalypse needs to be bald, so his hair falls off as Apocalypse was transferring to him. Anyway, so in the final scene, they're back in the school. Magneto and Jean, they're rebuilding the school. They rebuilt the school, actually. And the danger room, Magneto says, I'm not going to stay. And Xavier says, sure, I can't convince you, we'll just be here. And Magneto says, yeah, I'm going. So Magneto leaves, but he's friends with Charles again. And Charles is happy that Magneto has become good again. And it's gone full circle. They meet as friends, they part as friends. So that's great. And then the final scene, it's Mystique. She's in her costume. Man, it's a great nod to her original white costume, that white tunic costume, but she's got some blue and cinematic universe style costume. And she's training the new X-Men. Cyclops is in a costume that's very similar to the comic books, with the X, with that whole cross, that whole straps here with the X. And then Beast is in the controls, controlling the danger room. And then you've got who else was in there? You've got Storm, you've got Nightcrawler, and they're all practicing. I forgot who the other one was. And they're all training, and then that's when Mystique says her speech, like, "You're no longer students, you're X-Men," and the whole danger room opens up, and then you get Sentinels coming in, and that ends the movie. And I thought it was great. It finishes the whole trilogy nicely, and very, very nicely. Thank you, Fox, Kinberg, and Singer. Wonderfully done. End credits. There's only one end credits scene, at least here in Manila, and this is it. The end credits is you go back to the Weapon X facility in Alaska, and there's a cleanup crew. They're cleaning up everything in the wake of that Wolverine and whole X-Men breakout. They're cleaning up everything. And then there's this guy in a suit with glasses, and he's going to that chamber. He's going to the Weapon X chamber, and he gets like a vial that's marked Weapon X, and he saves that vial in his briefcase. And as he closes the briefcase, or the attaché case, the briefcase is marked SX Corp. And that confirms everybody's theory that the next villain to appear in this universe of Fox is Mr. Sinister. SX as in Nathaniel SX. And it's great because, in the comic books, he looked that way, like white with all blue costume, because of Apocalypse. So I don't think we're gonna get to see that. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, because he's a geneticist. He can do that to his body. But it was Apocalypse that turned Mr. Sinister to the way he looks. And then Mr. Sinister really grew in power and influence even more when Apocalypse died in the comic books. And because we get to see the new Jean, the new Cyclops, and we get to see Mr. Sinister. You know, Mr. Sinister is gonna keep appearing in the movies because, and I hope Jean and Cyclops keep appearing because, you know, Mr. Sinister, Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, that whole thing, Cyclops, Cable, they're all intertwined. We get to see more of that, and it was amazing. I didn't really get it at first until I said SX. Oh my god, Nathaniel Essex, as in Essex? And I was like, wow, so it is Mr. Sinister. And you know what? If we don't see that all blue and white, red, blue, that all blue with that funny looking cape and white faced Mr. Sinister, it's fine. It's the cinematic universe. We'll probably get to see another version of Mr. Sinister, but that's fine. But the mere fact that they brought Sinister in, I think that opens up more possibilities for the X-Men. I'm not so much excited about Mr. Sinister per se. I like the stories around Mr. Sinister, but I didn't really like him as a villain. I thought he was pretty annoying. He was a cross between Apocalypse and the Joker, and he was a little bit annoying at times for me. He's not my favorite villain, but you know, having said that, him being now in the universe, in the cinematic universe for Fox, for the X-Men, I think that opens up a ton of possibilities. And that is great for the fans, great for everybody. So there you go, folks. My final rating for the movie. It's not perfect by all means. The script could have been written. There's a bunch of parts in the script they were trying to inject some humor. I think for me, the movie, the humor was a hit or miss. They don't do it as well as Marvel. Marvel does humor very nicely. This one was a little bit shaky, hit or miss. Some were funny, some were not. Special effects was great. It wasn't like a Michael Bay film that the effects were just cumbersome and exasperating. This time the effects were just right. I thought it was in an epic grand scale, but it wasn't annoying. It wasn't tiresome. It was great. The movie's gonna get a 9 out of 10 for me. Well done. Well worth the wait. Well worth watching. Go see it in a big screen. You will not be disappointed. Forget about the comic books. This is a cinematic universe. It will take inspiration from the comic books, but it is its own story and it is great. If at all, not more nitpicking. I thought Apocalypse was too strong. Didn't think, but they needed a character like that. The humor, Mystique I thought was okay. I think Jennifer Lawrence did a good job. Fans didn't like her, but I thought she was okay. They didn't have to kill off Havoc. Sinister's back, so Sinister's in a picture. Wolverine did a great cameo. A few more but I said the movie's great. I thought Storm, Angel and Psylocke, they were pretty much less characters. There was a little bit of involvement. They were like background characters. I was a little bit disappointed we get to see more of them in action. I was expecting them more cartoony action, but I guess that would have ruined the film. A little bit disappointed we didn't get to see much. But you know what? Anything's possible. All the fans love it. I'm sure Kinberg is gonna bring back Psylocke. Maybe resurrect Angel. I don't know, but definitely Psylocke has to be brought back. We'll get to see more of Storm. So yeah, these are all nitpicking on my part, but yeah, overall great film. 9 out of 10 for me. That's my spoiler review for the movie X-Men Apocalypse. Go see it. Thanks for watching.